Hello and welcome to today's crochet tutorial. I'm going to be showing you how I made this mermaid core inspired crochet set. It consists of two pieces, the mesh sleeve and the lace-up crochet top. I've been seeing a lot of these mermaid core inspired pieces on the internet lately, and it just so happened that I bought this really beautiful blue auburn gradient color yarn, and so I thought I'd make this piece. You can use any color yarn you like. I just was really excited to try this one out in this specific pattern. I'm going to be using a 3.5mm hook, and we're going to be starting with the crochet sleeve. So we're going to start with a slip knot and insert our hook into the slip knot, and we're going to do a chain 3. And then from the chain 3 you're going to yarn over, go into the first chain space, pull through so that now you have 3 loops on your hook. You're going to chain 1 and then yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So we're going to be doing a foundation chain, which is really stretchy for the neckline. So again, yarn over, go through the chain space here, and yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, chain 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Again, you want to be working into this top V space of the foundation chain, so that's where you're going to be going into. So again, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. And then as you work, you want to just always make sure that you're yarning over and going into this specific chain space here, this top V chain here. That's where you want to be crocheting into. So continue to do this. And the stitch finishes when you go through the last pull through 2, so you're just going to continue doing this until you have a piece that goes all around your neck. So for me, I did about 100 stitches of these. If you like, you can just do a normal beginner chain, but I like this type of foundation chain because it's stretchier around the neckline and I want it to be an off-shoulder top. So now continuing, after you do your last chain, you're going to slip stitch into this very first stitch here from the top here, and so you're going to yarn over and pull through into a slip stitch, and so that's the end of your foundation row. So now when you lie down, it should all be flat. Make sure that you slip stitched it on the correct side. And next we're going to be splitting this into 4 sections. So we're going to be stitch markering here, 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 and here. Basically, you just want the 2 side pieces that's going to be going over your shoulders. So the stitches in between those are going to be equal, and so you should have the same amount of stitches on these 2 sides as well as the same amount of stitches as front and back. If it's not equal, it's okay, just as long as the arm stitches are the same amount of stitches, because you're going to be doing increases at these 4 stitch markers. So for next row, we're going to go slowly, so you just need to insert your crochet hook into the working chain. And what we're going to do now is chain 4, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the stitch we're going to be using for most of this pattern is the treble crochet stitch. So we're going to yarn over twice, skip 3 chain spaces from the previous row, and we're going to be crocheting into the 4th chain. So for treble crochet, that's yarn over, pull through 2 3 times. I'll show you again here. Yarn over twice, go into the same stitch. You're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through 2. So that's a treble crochet. And you're going to do that for 3 treble crochets into the same stitch for this row. So after doing your 3 treble crochets, you're going to do a chain 1, and you're going to be skipping 3 stitches from the previous row again, and you're going to be doing another 3 treble crochets into the 4th stitch. So into the 4th stitch here, we're going to do 1 treble crochet, 2 treble crochet, and the final 3rd one. And then you're going to repeat, ending that with another chain 1. And you're going to repeat this pattern of doing 3 treble crochets in the 4th stitch, skipping 3 from the previous row, and chaining 1 until you get to a stitch marker. So I will see you there. And now we're almost approaching our stitch marker, so we're going to do our last 3 treble crochets into the last stitch before the stitch marker. And now you should have a gap of 3 between this last stitch and the stitch marker. If you don't, it's alright. If you have more or 2, then that's still okay, but we're gonna be going right into the stitch marker. So as you can see here, I have a gap of 4 stitches before my stitch marker, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and go into the stitch marker anyways. So I'm gonna do 2 treble crochets. And then after that, I'm going to chain 2 and do 2 more treble crochets into that stitch, into that same stitch of the stitch marker here. So that's a total of 2 treble crochets, chain 2, and then another 2 treble crochets into the stitch marker. And don't worry about the gap because you should be able to even it out if you have the same amount of stitches on the other side. So after you finish that, you're going to end off with a chain 1, and you're going to continue skipping 3 stitches and continuing the 3 treble crochets into the same stitch after the stitch marker until you get to the next stitch marker. If you need a reference of where the 4 treble crochets are, you can put your stitch marker back into the gap of that, because this is where we're going to be doing our increases for the rows to come. But if you can see it and you can spot it, so you can just eyeball it. Now we're just going to continue that pattern until we reach the next stitch marker, and I'll show you how to do that. Now again, we're coming up to the next stitch marker, so we're going to do our last 3 treble crochets and then chain 1. Like I said, there should still be the gap of 3 or more as long as it's equal to the other side when you finish this row. So now we're going to repeat that of doing 2 treble crochets, chain 2, and 2 more treble crochets into this same stitch. So in each stitch marker, you're going to do 2 treble crochets, chain 2, and another 2 treble crochets, and end with a chain 1 before you continue skipping the previous 3 from the last row. And now when I lay it flat, you can see this obvious increase in these 2 points where I had the stitch markers, and you're going to repeat that for the whole row. And I'll meet you back here at the end of the row. So we're back at the end of the row, and now we have 1, 2, 3 gaps until the beginning of the chain. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just do 2 treble crochets into this gap here, right where we chain 4 at the beginning, and that way we have kind of like a false 3 treble crochets, and then you're just gonna slip stitch to the chain 4 at the top there, and that's your first row done. And when you lay it flat down, you should obviously see these 4 points where you did the increases. And so in between the 2 arm sides, you should have the same amount of treble crochets as the other. So for me, both of these sides have 4 sets of the treble crochets. And then we're going to move on to our second row, which we're going to start with a chain 4 again. This time we're going to do a treble crochet skipping 1 stitch from the previous row. So we're going to go into the second stitch and we're going to do 1 treble crochet there, and then we're going to do chain 1, and then we're going to skip another stitch and go into this big gap here between the previous row of treble crochets, and then we're going to chain 1. So we're going to continue this where we do a chain 1, then a treble crochet skipping 1 stitch, and then another chain 1 and a treble crochet going into the big gap between the previous row. And then I'm going to meet you at the stitch marker, which is here, and I'm going to show you how to do the increase for this row. It's really easy. So just before you get to the increase stitch, you're going to do 1 last treble crochet, chain 1, then you're just going to follow up with doing 1 treble crochet into the increased gap of the previous row, and then you're going to follow that with a chain 2, and then again another treble crochet into that same gap from the increased row from the previous row. And then after you do that increased stitch, you're always going to do a chain 1, And then you're just going to continue doing the treble crochet, chain 1, skip 1, treble crochet into the previous row. And then you're just going to repeat that pattern again until you reach the next stitch marker, and repeat how I did the increases for the first stitch marker. So that's treble crochet, chain 2, treble crochet, and then chain 1, and then continue the skipped treble crochet pattern. And that's how you do the increases and the stitches for this second row. And you always want to make sure that you're doing your treble crochet in the gap before and after the increase row with a chain 1 in between as well, so that there's no increase or pulling of the stitches. So these are the increases you're going to be doing in 4 of those increase stitches. So you can see I did the 2 here for this armhole, and you're going to keep doing that 2 more times until you reach the end of the row. And when you reach the end of the row, you're just going to finish up by doing 1 more final treble crochet and then a chain 1. And then finally you're going to do a slip stitch to the start of the row into this top stitch of the chain 4 there. So that's how you finish the first row, and we're going to start the next row again by chaining 4. This time, because there's a bigger gap, we're just going to be skipping the first gap there, and we're going to be doing our sets of 3 treble crochets into the next gap there. So 1, 2, and then 3 treble crochets, and then we're going to finish the stitch by doing a chain 1. And what you're going to do is you're going to skip this next gap from the previous row, and you're going to be crocheting into the next one. So that's the pattern for this row, which is 3 treble crochets in every other gap with a chain 1 in between the stitches until you reach the stitch marker. So you can see that I'm doing my last set of treble crochets before the increase stitch here, and for me I have a gap that's naturally before the increase, so I'm just going to continue doing my final chain 1. And then what we're going to do, we're going to repeat the pattern from the very first row, which is doing 2 treble crochets, chain 2, and then another 2 treble crochets into this increase gap right here. So we're going to do that as the increase for this third row. If you don't have a gap before your increase stitches like I do, that's okay. You're still just going to finish your set of 3 treble crochets before the increase stitch, still do a chain 1, and then repeat the same increase pattern. So you can see here in my pattern that it's increased in the gap. So this is where we're going to continue increasing, and we're going to continue the skipping pattern again. So we're going to chain 1 and then do our sets of 3 treble crochets until the next stitch marker, and do the same increase stitch in the 3 remaining increase stitches. And that's how you do the third row, and I'll see you back at the end. So see here, for example, I don't have a gap before the increase stitch, and that's still okay. I just finished with the chain 1, and I'm going to continue just doing the same thing into the increase stitch. So if you have a gap or not before the increase for this row, that's okay. You're just going to continue as normal with the 2 treble crochets, the chain 2, and then another 2 treble crochets into the increase stitch, and then you always finish with a chain 1 before skipping it again. Now I finished my third row, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna do one last 2 treble crochets into the last stitch here where I have a natural gap, and then we're going to slip stitch it to the first chain 4 that we did, and this way it has like again, like for the first row, you have a false treble crochet. So now when I lay my piece flat like this, you can see that I have the four increase points here. And when you try it on, it should sit comfortably around your shoulders and your neck like this. So you're just going to repeat those 2 row patterns until it's leveled with your armpit. And for me, I just did an extra last row, so I have 4 rows in total, but if you need to do more, that's totally okay. Just repeat the 2 alternating patterns. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna finish up my 4th row, and then I will show you how to make the armholes. So we're just finishing up with those last few treble crochets, and we're going to do a slip stitch into the start of the row, and we're just gonna chain 1 at this point. And to start the armholes, we're just gonna be doing half double crochet into every single stitch of this row. So as you can see, for my treble crochet gaps, there's 2 chains there, so you need to be doing 1 half double crochet into each stitch of the row. So you might have to wiggle your hook a little bit, but you need to make sure you're doing 2 half double crochets into the gaps of the previous row, so this way that it's not too tight and it's not being decreased and you're not missing any stitches. And you're going to continue doing the half double crochets until you reach the increased stitches, and then from there we're going to make an armhole. So I will see you at the start of 1 increased stitch. And so when you reach your increased stitches, you're going to do 1 last half double crochet in the gap before the increased stitches, so right there where I did it. And now you're just going to do a chain of 25. I'm a size S, so I did chain of 25, but if you need to do more, do it in increases of 5. And then when you slip stitch it to the other side, just measure it against your own body and your own arm and see if that's comfortable for you. But 25 chains is enough for me, and you can be a bit more loose with the tension so it's more stretchy. And now we're gonna go to our other side. This is our other increased stitch on the other side of the armhole, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a half double crochet into the other side of the increased stitch. So you see, because we began with a half double crochet stitch, and now we're just gonna go into the gap of the other side of the increased stitch and do a half double crochet into that gap stitch there. So now this is the armhole, and you did a half double crochet to connect it. And now we're just gonna do half double crochets again across to the other side and repeat that. So see, here we have the armhole and the chain, so in the middle is going to be the armhole. We're just going to do half double crochets until the next increased stitch. And now again, we're going to repeat that of doing our last 2 half double crochets in the gap before the increased stitch. So 1, 2, and then see the increase there. So now you're just gonna do the same amount of chains as the other side. So I did 25, I'll do 25 for this side. If you did 30, 35, 40, 45 or more, you're gonna do the exact same number of chains and make sure you count. And then once you do that, you're going to again do a half double crochet into the next gap of the increase on the other side. So this is where we're going to crochet into, not the gap of the increase itself, but the next one. So now you're going to half double crochet into that one, and then continue doing 1 half double crochet in every stitch until you reach the start of the row again. Now we're back at the start of the row. Just going to finish off with a few more half double crochets, and then we're just going to slip stitch it to the very beginning, the very first half double crochet here. So we have 2 more to go, and you do 2 last half double crochets, and then we're going to slip stitch it to the very start here.
So that was for chain 1, and this is the gap for the first half of double crochet, and that's where we're gonna slip stitch it. And you can pull off a little bit of the tail, and this is what the 2 armholes should look like. It's gonna be a bit squarish, but this is what they will look like with the 2 armholes. This would definitely be a good time to try it on. Make sure there's enough stretch to it and it's comfortable to wear, and it should be flat when you wear it. So there you have it. And now we're just going to pull out a little bit of the tail to weave it in later, and you can go ahead and cut that off. And now we're going to start on our sleeves. For the sleeves, we're going to be working it around from the bottom of the chain, just so that the seam is at the bottom of the sleeve. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our yarn that's already in a slip knot, and we're going to insert our hook into the chain. We're going to do a chain 1, and make sure you pull the ends together so that it's slip knot properly. We're going to do chain 4, and then we're going to do 2 treble crochets into the same first stitch that we just attached our yarn into. And so what we're going to be doing is mirroring the pattern on the top. So for me, I ended my top with the skipped treble crochets instead of the sets of 3. So now to start my sleeve, I'm doing a set of 3. But if you did it the other way around, you can start with the skipped treble crochets, but I'm doing the sets of 3. So here I'm going to be skipping 3 chains, again like on the top, and then I'm going to be doing the 3 treble crochets into the same stitch on this chain. So that way the sleeve kind of continues from the top pattern with the sets of 3, and that's how I'm gonna do it on the sleeve. Again, skipping 3 chains and crocheting the set of 3 into the 4th chain here. So again, 1 treble crochet, 2 treble crochet, and the last treble crochet here, and then the chain 1 as well. So then you're gonna do that until you get to the end of the chain. So you can see here that after this last set of 3 and chain 1, I have 3 chains away from the top again, where we did our last half double crochet. So we're just gonna go into this gap here and do our set of 3. And next to it is our increase stitch, so we're gonna skip that. And for doing the crochet onto the top part, we're just gonna copy what we did from the previous pattern and skip the big gap. So here I'm doing the 3 sets of treble crochet, and then you can see we're gonna be crocheting onto the neckline part. So what we're gonna do is just skip the big gaps and crochet into the next gap with the sets of 3. And remember to do your chain 1 after you finish your set of 3 treble crochets before moving on to the next set. And now when you get back to the chain, you can see that my set naturally fell into the increase of the previous row on the sleeve. So what we're still gonna do is just follow skipping 3 of the sets, and we're gonna count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're still gonna crochet into the 4th stitch from this previous set. Even if it's on the chain or on the shirt, just make sure you crochet into the 4th. And then just continue skipping 3 until you get back to where you started this row. So that's the first row of my sleeve done, and I'm just going to count the amount of sets I have. And you want to make sure that when you start the other sleeve that you have the exact same amount of stitches as the other side, so one sleeve is not bigger than the other. And you should always count the amount of sets you have as you make the sleeves and as you continue to go along. You also want to make sure that you did the sets of 3 in the same place, especially at the start of the chain here, and so then you can continue on to your next row. So to start in the next row, we're going to be doing the exact same thing as the top. We're just going to be chaining 4 to start with, and we're going to do the pattern of skipping 1, doing 1 treble crochet, and then chaining 1, skipping 1 from the previous row, and another treble crochet. So this is the same thing that we did for the top, and we're just going to be now, instead of working into the gap, we're going to work into the stitches of the treble crochets. So instead of working into that big gap, we're just going to skip 1 from the treble crochet row. And there you have it. So you're just going to repeat that pattern for the second sleeve row of just chaining 1, skipping 1, and then doing a treble crochet. And you're going to just do it into the stitches of the treble crochet sets this time instead of the big gaps. And that's it for this second row. And then, like every other row, you're going to slip stitch it back to the beginning. And I'm just going to finish off my second row here with 1, 2, going into the next stitch, doing my treble crochet, chaining 1, and then finishing off with a slip stitch back to the start of the row. So that's how you do it, and you're going to repeat the same pattern from the first part of the sleeve. So you're going to just chain 3, you're going to go into the first stitch here as the chain 4, and then you're just going to skip the big gaps. So in every other big gap, like the previous row, you'll just do a set of 3 treble crochets followed by 1 chain. And yeah, there you have it. That's the pattern for the sleeves, and you can make it as long as you like. For myself, I did about 21 rows, and that ended up like around my wrist, but you can make more rows if you like a longer pattern or a slightly oversized look. That's completely fine. And for me, I personally ended on the sets of 3 because I just think it looks nicer, but you can also end on the treble crochet skipped rows. And just a little tip when you're ending the sets of 3, normally you should have one last gap before the chain 4 and the 2 treble crochets. And that should, if you did the multiples of 5 in the original chain, that's how it should end up. And then you're just going to chain 1 and then go into the chain 4 here and slip stitch it there. And after every row, I do recommend counting the number of sets you have so that you don't accidentally decrease or increase the amount of sets of 3 you have. So you want to always be crocheting the same amount of sets of 3 as the first row, and that way your sleeve does not change. And then when you're finished with the first sleeve, you're just going to repeat the exact same thing for the other. Wow, cool. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. Please drop an emoji or something. And now we're gonna start on the tank top. So we'll start with our favorite little slip knot, and we're just going to start with a chain. And this chain is going to basically go from your pit to pit. So it's just gonna go from one armpit to the other. That's really weird to say, but this is how it should look. It should be going from one of your armpits to the other, just straight across like that. So do however many chains you need. I don't know how many I did. I'll write a number there. Great, so do however many chains you need, and then just do a +1. And then for the first stitch, we're going to be going into the second loop chain from your hook. So we're going to do a half double crochet into the second loop from your hook. And so half a double crochets, you yarn over, go into that, and you should have 3 loops on your hook. And then you're gonna do a yarn over one more time, pulling through all 3 again. Yarn over once, you're gonna go into the chain and yarn over, pull through. So you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over one more time and pull through all 3. So that's half double crochet, and we're gonna do it one more time here. So you yarn over, have 3 hooks loops on your hook, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. So that's half double crochet, and that's what we're going to be doing for this entire row of the chain, and I'll see you back at the end. So we're coming to the end of the chain, and I'm just going to do my last 2 half double crochets, and we're going to go into the very last chain of this as well. So just wiggle your hook a little bit, and we'll do 1 half double crochet. So that's the first row, which is just 1 row of half double crochets. Now for the second row of the top, we're going to be starting with a chain 1, and we're going to be starting increases because we're working our way down from our neckline down to our waist. And what we're going to do is we're going to be working into this very first chain stitch here, and we're going to do 2 half double crochets into the same stitch. Into the very first stitch of the next row, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. And what this does is slowly it's going to increase the length of your neckline. So you want to make sure that you're going to the very first stitch and doing 2 half double crochets, and then for the rest of the row you're just going to do half double crochets in every stitch like normal. And I'll repeat that again for the start of the next row. So end your second row by finishing half double crochets in every stitch, including the first chain 1. We're going to finish with our last half double crochet, and you're just going to repeat that again. So by chaining 1, and then you see the first stitch here again, we're going to do 2 half double crochets again into the start of the third row. And that's basically how we're going to start working from the neckline down to our waist with the increases. So doing the rest of the row with half double crochets like normal, and finishing the row with normal half double crochets in every stitch. And then you're going to start every single row with a chain 1 and then 2 half double crochet into the very first stitch. And that's just going to gradually increase the width of the top, so eventually it wraps around to the back of your waist. And we're going to repeat these increased rows with the chain 1 and 2 half double crochets in the first stitch until you get the desired length of coverage around your chest. And when you've done enough rows, what happens is basically the rows increase as you work downwards from the top. So it gets wider and wider, and eventually you'll be able to cover your whole chest, and it works towards the back. So do as many rows as you like. I did a total of 33 increase rows, and when you're happy with the length, you're gonna start on the final row, which is basically a mirroring of the 3 sets of treble crochets from the sleeve. So you're gonna do a chain 4, and now we're gonna start our treble crochets by skipping 1, 2, 3 and crocheting into the 4th stitch again, and you're going to do your sets of 3 treble crochets into the same stitch. So 1, 2, 3. I personally changed the color to white to contrast the rest of the top, but you don't have to. You can continue with the yarn you're using, or you can change colors if you like. And we're just going to continue that again, skipping 3 and crocheting into the 4th stitch and doing 3 treble crochets into that stitch. And in between every set of 3 treble crochets, you want to remember to do your chain 1. So see here, finish your set of 3, chain 1, then you're gonna skip 3, go into the 4th for the remainder of this last row. At the very end of the row, I'm just gonna do my last chain 1, and I'm gonna do my last treble crochet, just one last treble crochet into the end of the top. It doesn't matter if you have a gap or not. I just want to do a last treble crochet to mirror the first chain 4, and now we're gonna work upwards to make the loops for the lace up top. So now we're going to do a chain 2, and we're going to be doing a single crochet into the last treble crochet of the top. So we are going to do 3 single crochets up this treble crochet that we did from the last row. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do 7 single crochets up the next 7 rows
of the top. So we're going to be working into the top now, and we're going to do 7 single crochets up the side of the top. You might have to wiggle your hook to get into the side of the top, but that's okay. Just wiggle it and we'll make our way up the top slowly. And once you reach the 7th row, what we're going to do is one last single crochet, and we're going to do a chain 2. And then we're going to go into the 8th row with a single crochet. So this is going to be where we stick our lace up for the back. The string is going to go into there, and you're going to repeat this 7 single crochets, chain 2, 7 single crochets, chain 2 for 2 more times, and then we'll work right back up all the way to the top of the top and slip stitch it to the back, and you're just going to cut off the end and repeat this for the other side. Just reattach your yarn and pull the hook through. You're going to do your chain 2 and then do the 3 single crochets up the side of this chain, and then you're going to repeat the same pattern of 7 single crochets, chain 2, 7 single crochet, chain 2 up the side of this top for 3 more times. And that should be following the other side of the top where we did the chain 2s. So you should have 3 chain 2s up the side of the top, followed, see here, and then followed until the top. Now for this side, I'm not going to cut off the yarn. I'm just going to do my last single crochet, and what we're going to do is I'm going to be using the yarn to make a chain for the string for the lace up back. So I'm just going to make a chain. I'm going to chain 200, and that's enough for me to lace it up and tie it on the side. So I'm just going to do my 200 chains here, and this is what it looks like. I'm finished with it. I'm going to cut it off. And then because we slip stitch and cleaned up the other side a little, I'm just going to continue to reattach my yarn to the other side. And that's why I slip stitched it to the back, so it will be cleaner when I reattach my yarn. So I have my yarn on a slip knot, and I'm going to reinsert my hook into the very first single crochet here. I'll reattach my yarn and pull through so that the tail comes through as well, so I can weave that in later. I'm just going to tighten that slip knot, and then I'm going to continue to do the same chain amount, so 200 chains, so that it will be equal. I just flipped my crochet piece back to the front just so that the chain will be facing the same side as the other. And also, if you decide not to cut off your yarn and use a different color, you can just continue from doing the single crochets up the side of the top like the second side I did. So what I'm going to do now, I have my 2 chains. I'm going to lace up the back by pulling them through the chain 2s on the side of the top. So I'll lace that up and weave in my ends, and then we'll be almost done. So I have the back of the top facing me right now, and I personally like to work bringing the chain from outside in, but that's just personal preference, so you can do it whatever way you like, and then I'll see you once I'm done lacing up the top and weaving in the ends. And there you go, that's your tank top done. It's laced up at the back beautifully, and you have space for your arms. It's all good. And now you can try it on with the sleeve as well. I'm so happy with how the colors turned out. So it did run out a little bit at the end for the tie and the lace up at the back, but I think it's kind of nice that it's a side tie piece now, not just like tying at the back. So you can just make one string longer than the other, make one chain longer than the other, and then it'll turn out like this. So I think it's just kind of nice that it ended up that way. You can see that this stretchy neckline yarn, this stretchy foundation row lets me like kind of wear it like as an off-shoulder piece sometimes, and then it also like mirrors with the last row of the tank top, or you could just, you know, wear it up
on your shoulders like that too. I was also very just inspired by a lot of mermaid core crochet pieces I've been seeing lately, and I just happened to buy this yarn that changes color and it fit the theme perfectly, so I thought that I would make this set, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So if you use the same color, or if you can find the yarn that's also like this color, please let me know. Or if you try this pattern in a different color, whether it's solid or different colors of yarn, show me and tag me on my Instagram at lilac_lilies_vintage. I really love to see the stuff you come up with. Or if you're a beginner and trying this pattern out, let me know your progress and also tag me. I really appreciate your support once again. I also dyed my hair blue for the first time. I never bleached my hair or dyed my hair like a really bright color before. And it's faded out now, but you know, I've just been feeling like a mermaid lately. And this top is just really giving the mermaid core thing, I hope. I don't know. But yeah, try it out and let me know how it goes.